This is a class 2 preparation. I'm going to start with talking about the matrix band and the wedge. If this is not placed properly, you are not going to get a very good contact. You're not going to have your margins sealed interproximally, so you have to make sure that you have the band on properly. Once you have your band on, you have to make sure that the band is below the gingival margin, which is down in here, below this margin about 1.5 millimeters or 1 millimeter at least. And then you want to be sure that the band is higher than, the highest cusps. You're going to be bringing your instrument around like this, and you want to make sure that it doesn't slip over top of your band. So both sides are good to go. I have wedges in from the lingual side. The boxes appear to be closed tightly, and I burnished right at the contact point, which is right here, because that's where this new filling is going to contact this existing tooth. And then I burnished over here, which you can't see, right where this new part of the filling will contact this tooth. Okay, so I have a Compio in now that is a flowable material. I'm going to start off with putting some flowable material down into the box areas. And then before I cure it, I take my Explorer and just make sure that that material has flowed into the line angles. And I don't want the material to be anywhere other than where I intended it to go, because then when I cure, then you're going to have it in the way, and you may have to remove some of it. So make sure that your material goes right in the box area and seals everything up. This flows nicely into any of the little nooks and crannies that maybe your packable composite will not go into. I'm going to wave the light, from mesial to distal, distal to mesial until that's finished curing. Okay. Now I'm switching back to my packable. I'm going to apply some of my material in here, and in order to get it to stay, you kind of brush it off on the tooth. To get it to stay there. So use your nib and pack this into the interproximal area, and pack it down onto the floor, and against the axial wall, and leave some material more towards the distal of where you're packing, so you can kind of create a little bit of a wall there. I don't know if you can see it already, but you want to create your marginal wall and try to make sure that it's the right thickness and everything before you go to cure. And you want to seal up your cavo surface margins before you cure. So these areas right in here. This is an embrasure area, your occlusal embrasure area. You got to be very gentle and have a steady hand at, getting the composite out of these little embrasure areas, because if you don't and you cure it, now you've got to focus on trying to get that out with your disc, and it's a little more difficult. So the thing about composite though, you know how in the amalgam you had to make sure you went from tooth to filling? Well, you could do that with this as well. The only problem is that the composite might stick and pull away from your cavo surface margin. Let me see if this looks good. I'm going to mess with it a little bit more. You can always add a little bit more, so try to make it as nice looking as you can before you cure it, so you don't have a mess later on. So with the instruments, if you've got to keep them very clean. Don't let composite build up on them when you're trying to build things up, because it won't give you the results that you're looking for. You'll have a rough edge or scratches in your restoration. I'm wanting to go wherever it wants to go today. Mind of its own. So what I'm trying to do is build up this marginal ridge. I'm going to do the mesial one as well, and then I'll show you. You can literally remove your matrix band and then fill it like it's a class 1 restoration. I don't know how your dentist feels about you adding bonding agent to your instrument, but you need to make sure you talk with them about adding bonding, because sometimes they're not interested in putting too much bonding material on your instrument, because it kind of changes the composite material. See what the other side looks like. I can see in, pretty well for that embrasure, the lingual embrasure, distal lingual, but I can't really see it can't see through the band here on the distal buccal embrasure, so you have to use your mirror. Make sure you push against your band whenever you're filling these box areas, because you want a nice tight contact. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and fill the mesial box. sure you condense it in there well. Don't leave any voids anywhere. Once it's condensed in, push it into the line angles and leave yourself a marginal ridge that is an equal thickness to the opposing one. And I use my flat paddle to run across the top of the ridge and see if I can seal the cavo surface margin on both the buckle and the lingual. Cavo surface margins. See. Really wish I had a light. And then this doesn't show up very well when I put the overhead light on there. Again, I'm going to check the embrasures before I cure. Make sure that I don't have any material in those embrasure areas. Make sure it's nice and flush. And I'm going to cure. Uh-oh. I'm going to stop this. There's a fire alarm.